Hey, how's it going, YouTube? So today I thought we'd do a video a little differently in the beginning, and I just talk about some of the stuff that we're going to be using today. I'm going to be spraying my backyard and front yard with Atrazine, which is a weed killer, which is over here on the right. And then I've also got some blue marker dye, which is here. And then I've got a cheap measuring cup that I got from Home Depot. So the reason I went to Home Depot and got a measuring cup is, for one, it was relatively cheap. I think this one right here cost me about $1.50 with tax, and you don't want to be going to run to your cabinets and pulling out a glass measuring cup or a measuring cup you use to cook stuff with, then pouring in atrazine or some other type of chemical, and then trying to wash it or run it through a dishwasher, and that afternoon or that next day use it to cook a pie or bake something. It's because this stuff is nasty stuff. I mean, when used correctly, it's fine, but do you really want to go put this stuff in there that kills weeds and has a bunch of stuff on the back here behind this label that talks about what to do, you know, if you swallow it or if you get it too close to your skin, you know, what the doctor needs to do. For me, I'd rather just spend the $1.50 and get the cup. So, speaking of atrazine, we'll go ahead and talk about it. Atrazine is, just like it says, it's a weed killer. It's used primarily, it says here, for St. Augustine and Centipede grass. That's really important when you go to find a weed killer or something like Roundup. Well, not necessarily Roundup, because that's more of a non-selective herbicide, which means anything it touches it will kill. But when you go to find something like this, which is more of like a selective herbicide that won't necessarily kill your grass, but it will target all the other weeds, you want to make sure that your grass type is included on what is okay. Like if you go to the hardware store or a big box store and get some of that Scott's, like Bonus S Weed and Feed, you'll see on the back it lists what grass types are okay. So that's why it's important to know what kind of grass you have. Another thing that's really important is you need to read the label. That's really, really important, folks. You want to read the label, because you don't want to go out there and start putting this stuff down on your grass or putting it in your yard and doing the mad scientist stuff with this stuff, because it's nasty stuff. And it says on the back behind here, it says how many ounces it takes for a gallon, what's the maximum number of ounces that you can have in a gallon, how long you have to wait to reapply it, stuff like that. That's all important stuff. Another big important thing that you get from the label is the PPE, which is your personal protective equipment. You guys need to wear that stuff. That's on there for a reason. Like this, I've already read the label. The beautiful thing about the internet is a lot of these chemicals have the labels on the internet. So it has the SDS and the MSDS, which is the safety stuff. It tells you if it were to catch on fire, what to do, what kind of fire it is, what you need to wear when you're applying it, stuff like that. For this particular chemical, it says that the person applying it needs to have on long pants, long shirt, gloves, so like rubber, like nitrite gloves, it says are fine, eye protection, and a face. So one of the things I noticed was the atrazine, when you pour it out of the bottle, it's a very cloudy white color, which would make it hard to see if you didn't have the marker dye in there. The other thing is it's very thick, almost like yogurt. So maybe after you measure it out in your measuring cup,
put a little water in there to thin it out so it's easier to pour into your sprayer. Also, I'd recommend if you do use marker dye, try to find marker dye that's in the liquid bottles, not the granular like I used. I think the granulars, after a little bit of use, started to clog up my filter in the wand, probably because I didn't do a good job of agitating it and making sure that the marker dye was dissolved. Something else is when you're spraying, just go straight up and down, straight lines, and then if you need to, go back and forth at 90 degrees. You don't want to get sidetracked and try to get that one weed that's just out of reach. If you do that, you're going to get confused. You can see me, I start zigzagging some. That's because I'm reaching for that one weed that's just out of reach. You'll get it eventually, don't worry. Also, make sure you don't just douse the plants or the weeds with the atrazine or any chemical for that matter. Just light spray and keep going. When you're spraying, you want to keep your wand close to your knee. You don't want to be too high because then you might get the spray to drift, and you don't want to be too low because then you might douse the plant and then you could start burning the rest of your grass. Also, make sure that when you're done, you take the time to clean out your sprayer. Don't just, oh, I'm done, and throw it in your garage or wherever and you'll hop in the shower. Just take the extra time and clean it out. It'll be worth it in the long run because it'll help your equipment last longer. I hope you liked the video.